Welcome to the Tyler Dickerhoff Show Newswire. Today, producer Alex back with me. He's on the road, but he's here. We got so much to talk about. It took more than me. So we're going to start with the lead being, what the heck is going on in LA? A riot over ICE. How would you call it? ICE apprehensions, where they were going after illegals. They were, verified people, undocumented illegals that had committed crimes, whatever. They were picking them up in the Garment District of LA, and then full-on riots. We have cars being burned down. We have federal officers having rocks, bricks thrown at them. Pictures of bricks being outside of controlled areas, just pallets set there randomly. Overnight or yesterday, Trump called in the National Guard to help protect and essentially be the police force, because the police force in LA, the Highway Patrol, are unable to contain the situation, whether by choice or by directive. Just saw the headline that Newsom has sued Trump and had a letter sent to Trump with all 21 Democratic governors in the United States co-signed on this letter of don't overstep your power. Alex, where do we want to get started?
Right.
Where do we want to get started?
I was there during the COVID protests, and I saw all the images and what was happening, and it's very similar.
In what way? Why is it similar?
The similarities were, okay, let's take to the streets and burn shit down and loot stores like Nike stores and pharmacies and liquor stores for and no one does anything. It's just, let's let it all happen. I've been away on the road. I was at a wedding in Italy. Half the wedding moved from California that attended to Florida because of what happened during that time period. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
Like half the people I spoke to, we were in California. We moved to Florida after what happened, and I just don't see. And then Newsom to come on and come arrest me, and then so Californian of him. Let's sue Trump, right? Because that's what they do in California. As you see the images come out of there, American flags being burned, other countries' flags are being raised in the sky. Police unable to protect themselves. Let's looting, burning of vehicles. Like, they don't. From all the imagery, it doesn't seem like they have any control. You would think that, oh yeah, thank you for the National Guard. We need help, as the police chief says they need help, but Newsom's like, we.
But
don't.
hey, nothing to see here. It's peaceful. Everything's good. I mean, I as the day has gone on and kind of chatted with a few about it. Here's the difficulty: is this the point of unregulated anarchy. And it is much in LA as it's happened here in Washington. Just a few weeks ago, we talked about what was going on, the riots and the mayor coming out pretty much in defense of Antifa over a group who had actually got a permit to have an event. And now what we see going on in LA, and it's kind of like, all right, what do they want to accomplish? And what I have to look at it is, in some way, they want to make the current administration the bad guy. And let me just go through a couple descriptions that have been used. And I want you to just say, and just by your estimation, as I describe this, either like, yeah, that's in line, or, man, that's off base. That there's a group that's acting with complete authority. Okay? Which group, which political party is acting like they have complete authority, where everyone just needs to fall in line? They can't have any different opinions. And if you do have a different opinion, they are going to squash you down.
I would say that's more so the Democratic Party.
Okay. So in a fascist Gestapo has been described in, the early 20th century Germany, where they would go after people that didn't adhere to what they want, like all of that stuff. Again, which party do you think is actively engaging that type of activity?
Yeah. And as my family being from Eastern Europe, where my grandparents were taken from their families, stripped from their families, and taken to Germany. I would say so. I have personal connection to that story. I would say that's more the Democratic Party.
Yeah. And then when you look at it, a situation of who's acting as the authoritarian and the dictator and whatever they say goes, in this case, is it Trump or is it Newsom?
I mean, I'm trying to look at it from a really non-biased lens. It's Newsom. I mean, just from the wildfires, from living through the COVID times, Newsom sent. Did you remember Newsom's had National Guard sent when everyone had to get the jab? Do you remember this in
Oh
LA?
yeah, yeah.
National Guard was sent for that,
A National Guard got
but
sent to
not this.
shut down schools that did not comply with the shutter or verify that. So again, what's so hard here is like what is trying to accomplish, and to me, it's the civil unrest directing towards some type of alternative solution, and it's really, again, it's political because that's the way it's been driven. Instead of, I love the approach. The dude is no nonsense. Tom Homan from the director of ICE
Right.
is, when they were talking, it's like, why aren't there more people coming across the border? Because we're doing our job. And they're like, well, why did people get put up in hotels in New York? Well, if you got put into an ICE detention facility, you would be seen in 9 days. If you got put in a hotel, it was 6 months to 9 months. It was just this perpetuation. And he goes, it didn't make sense. We have facilities and they chose to put them in hotels to circumvent, like, okay, and pretty black and white. And he made the comments like, I stand by everyone's right to the First Amendment and to civilly protest.
Right.
The moment that you attack my officers, then we're going to uphold the law and order. I'm like, yeah, that's the way it should be.
Destroying vehicles left and right. I mean,
dude, one of the funniest comments that I saw a news anchor said is like, I really hope the police, the authorities don't show up because it's just a people, sitting around peacefully watching a vehicle burn.
Where are they watching? Like what? That's what there's.
It's like it's a bonfire in the summer. Like, you have a bonfire, you out, you sit around, you make some s'mores, some hot dogs. Yeah, I just, is somebody out there with a stick grilling hot dogs? No, they're burning vehicles
and looting Nike stores and pharmacies and other local shops who they could be, for all we know,
So
former immigrants or immigrants, stores or shops that locally got looted. I mean,
here's my take. Where does this end? Where does this go to? What's the play? What's the chess match?
The chess match, it seems like, let all this happen in our cities and then blame it on look, this is what President Trump did during his time. But and he because of decisions he made with immigration or border control, it's because of him that the rioting happened and the looting and the burning of vehicles and the burning of American flag. That's all Trump. That's their in their mind how they want to play it and skew it in the media. But I think
how's that playing out?
So how do you let that happen in your city?
How's that playing out? Because we continue to see the Democrat Party approval numbers go to lowest ever. You have people that are now trying to leave the party and declare themselves libertarian to separate themselves from a lot of this. Here's my opinion. Is and just wondering, all right, you have all of these governors in states that are they're Democrats and sign this co-joined letter. It's like, it's very odd that all one party would be represented, not both. You would think it's like, hey, you have constituents. Like, no, it was all the Democrat governors, not one Republican, all the Democrat governors. And you're like, talk about a society that is either you are with us or you are dead.
Right.
And we go back to a lot of these charges, in the media against Trump and the current administration. It's like, which party is acting in the way that we should be most concerned? Quite honestly, the Democrats and the Democrat leaders, instead of saying, like here in Washington where, oh, let's come in, let's be fair in our budget, let's make sure we're prudent. Oh, no, we just signed a $3 billion increase in deficit. You couldn't find anything to cut. No, you just decided, and the only people that voted for the budget were Democrats, not one Republican. And it's become so partisan. And the thing that I really, you and I talked about this, I shared it with you, a interview Andrew Schultz, the comedian, had with Bernie Sanders. And he's like, yeah, I don't agree with it, but I got to vote the way my constituents want. Wow, that's okay. I get that, but it's also like, who's being the leader and saying we can't continue to do this and create such division in certain areas? And what I see going on in California is it is just creating more unlawful, egregious division.
And that
to what end?
And you see videos of immigrants that came here legally from Mexico, or soldiers that are American soldiers, taking videos of like, if you don't want to be in this country, then just go back. If you want to burn the flag of the country you live in and then go back to wherever you came from. But like that, Newsom talking about bad leadership, like just from the wildfires to this, I just don't know how this guy survives. There must be so much money he's getting embezzling or being funneled from some powers that be to just continue what he's doing. But every family that I know that lives in the Los Angeles area doesn't feel safe. That's still there. They want to leave. Like, who's the leadership? Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, who are they thinking about?
Here's what's interesting. And I was just in California last week for a funeral, and seeing gas prices. Gas prices were in the low to mid $5 for just regular gas, considerably higher here in Washington. I had a friend that was there from Missouri, and on the day that he flew to California, it was $2.32 a gallon. Goes to California, it's $5.17 a gallon for unleaded regular 87 octane. And one of the things that I realized, and we're talking like, how do people continue to put up with it? And it's the classic frog in the pot. They don't know enough different that it could be different. And I think so many in leadership have relied on that to take advantage, but it is going to drive a lot of geopolitical relocations. You talked about it early. You talked about it much for yourself, moving to Florida. We're in Washington. We're, near to that precipice. And you wonder, okay, California's done it. The revenue that California has driven out of the state from companies and jobs that have relocated are pretty significant. Washington, it's happening. We talked about Amazon and Boeing, earlier in the year and last year. And now we're looking at all of these things going on, and we're like, if there's not a voice for people that have a different opinion, yet they can live somewhere else in the United States where their values and their beliefs are upheld, or you're driving your people out. And what point does that the tide turn where people are, stand up and revolt to say, quit destroying? And I think that's where, like, myself is torn. You've been here. Washington is gorgeous.
Beautiful.
The weather is amazing. The just the terrain is gorgeous. To me, it reminds me of where you just were. It reminds me a lot of Italy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And yet what sucks is, it's not because I don't love it here and my family doesn't love here. It's because, man, politically, we are quite honestly going to be forced out. And it's just kind of like, how did we get here? Where, in conversations with others, like, Gavin, there are vehicles burning. You have people throwing rocks at vehicles. You have, that stuff going on. What looks peaceful?
Nothing.
Like, where is your common sense to say, we're not standing there. We're not going back to Martin Luther King and the peaceful riots that he and Malcolm X, and like, no, they would let, people throw stuff at them. They continue to march and peacefully protest.
Right.
And yet that's not what we're seeing.
No. And that's the thing. California is a beautiful state, great mountains and views and nature and things to do. LA,
Grow anything
or,
that you ever want to grow in California.
yeah, LA was a super fun town, had a movie industry, television. That industry's gone down the drain. Tons of people, all that filming's going somewhere else. People are moving
Yeah.
away. And then just,
Atlanta is a big destination for a lot of that stuff.
but then it's just safety. I mean, how can you go after everything that's happened over the last 8 years, from locking down people in their houses to wildfires to protests to looting? That was my biggest concern: safety of my children. How do I know that they were going to be protected? And what I and the cost of living, once they go down Rodeo Drive and all the Bel Air and that area gets touched a little bit, then you'll see, because that's where all the money's at. They're in downtown. Oh, but I don't know. To me, there's something at play there that's keeping him in office. I don't know how, but I think that's going to change. I really think that that's going to change within the next few years.
Well, we
Some
saw that happen with the fires where there was a lot of the, I would say, long-term supporters that, were affected, and they're like,
Yeah,
no, that this isn't good. And as this goes on,
prevent
and
measures, action that wasn't taken. Yeah, there was.
yeah, it's going to be interesting again how when it comes to an end, what brings it to an end? Is it, Newsom relenting? Is it, I've long said, and it sucks, is, there was a comment from Gavin Newsom. It's like, well, if you guys, talking about the federal government, if you keep putting pressure on us, we're going to stop sending you money. And they were like, you don't send us money. Your citizens send us money, and you're at a deficit to the federal government.
Right.
So it doesn't quite work like
He
that,
has no
buddy.
leverage.
He sure thinks he does. And I think what's interesting is, when we've seen the higher courts get involved, like one of the biggest decisions recently made by the Supreme Court, I think it was made on Friday, where they had a 9-0 decision based upon discrimination. There was a female from Ohio who brought up a suit because she felt she was passed over twice because she was a straight female. And there were people that were of different sexual orientation that got the job over her with less qualified, less experience. And so she brought it up, and the Supreme Court decided that you don't have to have, because what the court said is, well, if that's the case, you have to provide us with proof that it was actually discriminatory.
Right.
And, the comment is like, well, but if you're a minority, you don't have to do that. But if you're considered the majority class, then you have to prove the fact that there's discrimination, as opposed to the court proving it. And the Supreme Court 9-0 said, no. And it's very interesting, because here's the thing that's gone on. We've talked a little bit about it. You have the majority classes, white men, white women, who continually choose to find ways to adhere to minority status. Oh, I'm a 16th Native American. I am, I have these different, racial things. I have certain disabilities. You see that within white, male, female, straight, than any other groups. And now we start to have the society that's like, oh, we're kind of getting caught. And then everyone's saying, why are we against DEI? What do you think DEI drove?
Right.
It is the oppression of the majority class, instead of just being 100% merit-based. And one of the details that I saw about the Supreme Court decision is like, why they upheld it 9-0, and what they wrote is, this is fundamental to the start of this country and the Constitution, that every man and woman, be created, treated
Right.
equally. And we've gone away from that in the drive for DEI.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, all right, is this again another pushback? And we have this situation over here going on in a different party that is kind of allowing anarchy to play out. And you're just seeing, where is all of this, I would say,
Where does it lead? Where did the road? What's the end game?
Yeah.
I think more people are going to leave California. They're going to continue to leave. The money's going to leave. The country, the state is already in a, like you mentioned, in a massive deficit. Um, and then what? You just let people take to the streets continuously? I mean, I don't know how that state continues. I mean, at some point, either
Well, and
Gavin
here's what's
Newsom
difficult is it
arrested.
is yes, it's large because it's LA, but it's still such a small part of the state. You know, there's a large population base in the other valleys throughout the state, the other
So
regions. And yet some of those are massively affected as well. And um, you know, I think it's unfortunate. And, you know, we've seen a lot of this back and forth, you know, poking fingers, this or that. I can't see how when we look at the leaders within the Democrat Party,
right,
how there isn't, I mean, they're continuing to lose people. And they're continually being told by action in some way, shape, or form. You know, the riots in LA are not people that are standing up and saying, hey, we need to have a better system for people to immigrate here.
right.
No, it is, man, and like it's been reported, professional protesters.
Right. Chaos.
It is just professional protesters that want to go, like, be, you know, act out with anarchy, you know, just kind of, all right, you know, do all of a sudden we end up having a situation like happened over the weekend where one of the Colombian candidates for president was assassinated. All
Yeah, I
right,
saw
well, we
that.
were pretty close to that last summer. Do we see one of these? It's a very interesting time. I don't know the answer, and it will play out in the matter of days.
It will. And you know, I was talking to my dad about this over the weekend. You know, so all my grandparents came off the boat, you know, after World War II from Eastern Europe, and he was just saying there was no programs. They didn't get free anything. They got
Yeah,
nothing. And
it's go figure it out.
go figure it out. There's no free this program for that program and this immigrant. Go get a job as a janitor or whatever you can get in a kitchen, whatever you can do, and work. And you know, now you got all these, you know, illegal people that came in illegally that get all this billions and billions of free programs that we all pay for, and then they go riot on the streets and burn down people's cars and loot. It's like, to your point, what you said, like, does if you were just to think about that of someone's family that came to this country legally years ago, worked really hard, never got any free anything. Now with all these programs, now all these people are coming in, rioting, you know, doing. I'm not saying everybody, but you know, kind
Yeah.
of to this point of like burning our flag. It's just like common sense. Like, where does common sense leave you there?
Well,
Like, how does
and here's the grand question:
oh
is I believe the biggest difficulty in our society is we have lost a basis of common sense. I've heard that in podcasts, you know, when I had the podcast with Joanna Lohman and we were talking about the, you know, transgender athletes and she, you know, several times, we need to have common sense. We need to have common sense. It's like, okay, what's common sense to you? Because we as a society no longer have a basis of what seems sensical commonly. Is what's common sense to me is not necessarily common sense to a lot of other people in this country. And that is where, whether it's a degradation in values and understanding, and it's forcing ideologies over values, but we no longer have a basis of common sense. And that is why we see all of the massive
because
disruption.
yeah, and I think, you know, you mentioned this before, was like, you had a great conversation with you know, a gay athlete, you know,
Mhm.
and Bill Maher can sit with Charlie Kirk, and they can sit and debate and not agree on everything, and but then, you know, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee or a drink or smoke
Yeah.
a cigar, right? But uh, because if I disagree with you and you disagree with me and say I voted for this person, you voted, it's so weaponized, right? It's like
Well, but who's it weaponized by?
it's
Because I
weaponized
think
by
it's
the
really
media,
important to
by the
say
parties, and
which party is weaponizing it?
oh, I would say the left weaponizes is way more. Is that, hey, be trans, be all that, but know that I don't agree with it, or I don't agree with certain parts of what letting certain people into sports and competing. Um, and that's okay. I still think you're a great, wonderful person, and we can be friends. But like, I don't. And then it's like, no, you're this, and you're anti that, and like, and I'm like, whoa, like what
Yeah.
that? But that's like
Well,
the
I mean, one of the other stories that popped up over the weekend was the kind of back and forth between Simone Biles and Riley Gaines.
right.
And, Riley Gaines is very, very outspoken. And, I can understand the context of where Simone Biles is saying, hey, you're bullying these people. Okay, I'm not going to disagree with that one. But then the hypocrisy that Simone goes on and on and on. And what to me, this is what I laugh about. I think she had a social media manager write it that had no idea the other content that she wrote 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 years ago.
100%.
Because it is so not in the same voice and so against it. It's kind of like she's trying to gain public credit in a situation where she has actively spoken against 7, 8 years ago in regard to all the stuff that's been drug up. It's like, hey, once you put it out there, there's receipts.
Yeah.
And, if you put out there, man, I'm glad I don't have to compete against a male gymnast. And then all of a sudden you're saying we should allow trans, athletes to compete wherever they want. Those two don't go in line. And guess what? 8 years ago, there were trans people. Like we've had it. You go back. I saw this video. You love it. You'll love this because I think he's a New Jersey guy. Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah.
Andrew Dice Clay, the comedian. They showed I saw on X, I think, this video of him doing a comedy skits, comedy show, probably 30 years ago. And he's talking about trans athletes at that point. And of course, it's crude. He's a comedian. He's a crude comedian. Yes, it's going to be crude. That is what it is.
Yeah, it's a stick.
But it's also, he makes the comment, it's like, hey, just do you. Don't force it on me. And I think that's where it comes back to is like, if somebody wants to, transition, whatever. Like, do you? I don't care. But when it comes to, youth athletics man, we need to guard against grooming. One, that's a big thing for me that no one's talking about is the active grooming to drive individuals to, transition. And number two is it doesn't happen in the amateur under, 18. If you are an adult and you want to do whatever but then you look at the Olympic and some of those, like they have very staunch rules, like, no, it's not. And the solution is like, yeah, let's just create an open. Any gender can compete. Go for it. And other than that, we have women, we have men. You want to hear another funny take on this?
I do.
This is going to hilarious. And this is a buddy of mine said, Tyler, you should just make a short of this. And so here's what. So I've been doing a little plumbing, right? So we put in an outdoor kitchen. I had to run a gas line.
Looks beautiful. All the pictures.
Yeah, thank you. And so when plumbing, there are, you have fittings and, like elbows and couplers and valves, and they label them based upon the type of fitting. One, does it have, threads, or can you thread something into it? It's male and female. So you have a male coupler and you have a female. Like that is how they are described, male and female. And it's just kind of like, where are all the people attacking the plumbers for having these labeled? How atrocious that you have a pipe labeled with male and female. Who gets to why can't the pipe decide what it is? It's like, just have some common sense.
I remember, Tyler, I was looking at a house in California. And you ever heard the term, it's like a Jack and Jill bathroom?
Yeah, of course.
Was
that a Jack and Jack?
I'm not kidding you. We're going through the house, and I'm like, oh, this is like a Jack and Jill bathroom. And the real estate agent's like, oh, we don't call that anymore. And I'm like, what the fuck? What?
So what do they call it?
They call it like a dual person, something like a term that like made no sense. And I'm like, no.
Well, it makes sense. Just like, yeah, it is what it is. Like,
yeah, like some other.
Okay, I mean, you can try to alter and change everything, but it's just like, at what point are you just being
It's just ridiculous. It's just so.
Just take a pill.
What do
Just
you? Okay,
relax.
so LA's on fire. Rioting's happening. What do you think? How does this end? What's your speculation? Give me your hot take.
I think if Newsom continues to press the issue, it goes to the Supreme Court. I think it's going to be fast. I think it's going to be very directive. I think it is. We're not going to screw around. And I think that comes from Bondi. I think that comes from Hegseth. I think that comes from everyone. Is like, dude, we better squash this or we're going to have an upheaval on the entire West Coast. No, we are acting constitutionally. We are acting in the best interest of all citizens, whether, whatever they are, for peaceful and respecting our law enforcement officers.
Yeah.
And, there hasn't been a report how many of them have been injured or killed. I know there are, to some extent, because it's been pretty
At least
egregious.
3. I know. I read a report early.
And that's peaceful.
Yeah.
That's just peaceful. That's just a get together on a holiday weekend, peaceful, right?
Oh,
No. And so I think this week I think it goes fast and furious if Newsom is going to be that obtuse as far as trying to, here's the thing that, again, and it is so wildly political. The Democrat leaders continue to want to die on a hill. They want to die on a hill that Trump and the Republicans are all evil, 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 evil people. And they are dying and they are losing soldiers left and right and center and back. And they are continuing to dig their heels in. And you see these states like Washington, where these Democratic leaders continue to force political agendas against the greater population of the state, being very partisan in regards to how they regard things. And I continue to believe if Newsom doesn't back down, he is going to end up with a major fight on his hands. And I'm not going to say it's going to be Civil War-esque, but man, we're getting close to that. Well, that's what's crazy.
But dude, that's the thing. You're already seeing the police chief of Los Angeles going,
I need help.
This is not, my guys are, there's, again, to safety, my guys aren't safe.
Yeah.
No one's safe
help
here.
Me.
We need help. And
yeah. And the Marines fly up from Pendleton because last I saw, they were ready.
Yeah. Talk to the police chief, not the governor who's messed up.
And I think that's where the information is coming from. And again, it's many politicians that are completely out of touch, either by design, by choice of their greater. It's like where, and I mean, we're all over the place today, but 86% of pollsters, 86% hold on to the fact of gender equality when it comes to girls compete against girls and, boys against, male, female. 86% in continual polls. It's that high. And yet we have these states that a handful of leaders are digging their heels in at the ire of paid protesters and paid, political drivings to, maintain. And it's just like, oh, yeah.
You see the video. So Maxine Waters was trying to get into you see that video? She got the door slammed on her. Get out. But that's what's going to happen. See, that's what I think is going to happen when the people that are there to protect you, the police and the law enforcement, are like, all right, F these politicians. And when the rioting and the rioters start going to the politicians' houses and there's no one there to protect them,
they're not going to go to the place where they're driven by. Because I think that, and again, whether I believe it or not, I'm just going to, for the conversation here, say, it's been long said that George Soros is funneling money towards these protesters.
Yeah, well, I saw that.
They're not going to Gavin's house in Sacramento and protesting against Gavin.
Yeah.
Because he's like, do your thing. They're like, great, I'll do my thing.
And I'm getting paid to do it. And I'm getting supplies.
Yeah.
Nuts. It's nuts.
So, I mean, it's going to be, there's going to be less and less people that are willing to stand around them because they're like, ooh, this isn't, it's a literal come to Jesus moment. So
Yeah.
we will see. I mean, it is something I don't know what's going to happen. I do think it goes to the higher courts in fast.
I think you're right.
To put a squash on it so it doesn't get to the, complete, civil war type situation. But we are very much in that where I live. If you wanted to say, where's there a civil war probably going to happen? It used to be the Mason-Dixon line between, the Northeast and the South. It is right along the, the Washington, Idaho, the Oregon, Idaho, the California, Nevada, California, Arizona border. That is the Civil War line in this country. And there's a lot of people where I live that would push that all the way to the mountains and just say, take the West, take the coast, and, just whatever you guys want. You can't grow any food. Sure, you have some buildings, but we don't need you because all the food for all these states comes from east of the mountains. And we're like, just leave us alone.
Yeah.
Take Southern California, take the Bay Area, take Portland, take Seattle, go do you and whatever you want in that area. But then all of a sudden you have no money to exist because the rest of the money to support your habit comes from the rest of the state. California, Oregon, and Washington, all the same. Anyways, with that, thanks for joining. Thanks for being here with us. Till next time, choose to lead with